Welcome to Broadcast Map, the show that covers the world of broadcasting, the Canadian media landscape, sports media, the show's favorite sports teams, as well as news and politics. Here's your host, Ali Musa.
Good afternoon. On Monday, April 7th, 2025. Thank you, Rod Mahood, for the intro. Well, we're going to talk all about music today. I am joined by Eric Alper who is at thaterikalper.com and host of the That Eric Alper Show. And Eric, I want to really take this opportunity, first of all, to thank you so much for taking some time on this Monday afternoon to join me.
Oh, happy to do it, Ali. So good to meet you. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. Since we just started, can you just tell us about what is that Eric Alper Show, in case people aren't aware, and what you do?
Yeah, it's a 1-hour talk show on Sirius XM, and it's my opportunity to talk to people that I love, artists that I love, authors that wrote books on music, producers, engineers. And the fun thing about it, at least for me, is I don't go too inside baseball at all. You don't have to be a geek to listen. You don't have to know a single thing about the person I'm talking to. Most of the time, I have absolutely no idea how music is being created or how they created it in the first place. You stick me in a studio, I would have no idea how anything is done. To me, it's just magic. So hopefully all of my questions and conversations kind of come across as a guy who's just an idiot, who, like me, who just happens to love music and wants to find out more about it.
So kind of bringing in like a sports analogy. So technically no stats then when it comes to music.
No. I mean, I can talk about what it's like to sell 30 million albums and then sell 400,000 copies of the next one, and what happens to your psyche and what happens with the record labels surrounding you and what your manager thinks about that. But, for me, it's just all about putting the spotlight on them and, getting them to talk about the things that they love to talk about.
So now you mentioned it does air on Sirius XM. So I'm on Canada Talks, I believe.
Yep, on channel 167 and also on the app anytime.
And is it also available? Is it also available on all major platforms as well, like your Apple, your Spotify?
No, because subscriptions are the driving force behind SiriusXM.
Right. Okay.
I know that people have posted the show and segments, and that's fine. I just can't do that. So yeah, you got to be a subscriber to listen to the show on SiriusXM.
Well, how about this? I'll tell you something. I'm going to plug the app. I use the app. I love the app.
Oh, that's great.
You see, what I really like about it, though, what I really like is that, is that it really, I really like it for sports. I just like that I can listen to any NHL game, any MLB game, etc. I just love it for that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, anybody that has SiriusXM loves it for so many different reasons. A lot of the times it's because of obviously the nonstop songs and talk with no commercials, but it's also a great place if you're a sports fan. Not only do they have live action on everything from the NFL to the Major League Baseball to soccer to auto racing and horse racing, but it's kind of real experts behind the mic. So they know what they're talking about. So there's always a really good reason to get the subscription. I mean, subscriptions they rule our lives anyway. There should be no.
They do, yes. They do. I mean, because and I mean, and they also, the nice thing is too is that they also have the app only plan available as well.
Yeah. There's SiriusXM is one of those things where once you live with it in your car, once you get that free subscription, perhaps for 3 months when you get a new vehicle, most people continue it. And that's not to say that they don't listen to commercial radio or their local radio station. That's also super important for news, traffic, weather, sports, and that local angle of it. But I think
Yeah.
for music fans, because they have everything from hit channels to select artist run channels like U2 um, and Kelly Clarkson, among others. There really is something for everybody on there.
Yeah, like like see, yeah, no, I listen to SiriusXM. I listen to the to podcasts, and I still listen to some local radio as well. Just because, see, right now, especially with what's happening nowadays, especially for like local news, as you just pointed out, in traffic and weather, especially, that's I think where, just for that reason. But otherwise, I like to, and of course, also I like to read as well. So I like, so like it's always good to have so much at your fingertips, really.
Yeah, you're busy. You've got 1,000 things going on.
Oh yeah, yeah. So now, what did you think of Questlove's book, "Music is History"? I personally enjoyed it, but what did you think?
Yeah, I love it. Not only am I a big fan of the Roots and have been from the very beginning of the group, but I love the fact that Questlove has done so many things to advance music, not only in terms of that musicality that the Roots offer, but his books, his getting behind and putting his money where his mouth is by producing and directing documentaries on music, helping write books and forward segments like the Sly and the Family Stone, like Sly Stone's latest book. So he really is a music fan. He is such a musicologist that his books are, again, like you don't have to know a lot about hip hop music. He kind of explains where the songs began, what was happening politically and on the economic scale and socially, what was happening on MTV, what was happening in his high school, what was happening with his best friends in order to have that song connect the way that it did. And he really gives amazing history lessons on not only music but culture and us as human beings. He really holds up a mirror to who we are as people and as a society. And so his books are always a must read for me. He's got a couple of them out now, and he's just a guy that no matter what he does is always going to have a level of being authentic and being real with a sense of humor, with a real great writing style that kind of flows like the best Roots music.
Now I'm curious. Did you listen to the audio book to the audio version as well? I'm curious about it.
I don't. My wife is a huge audiobook fan, but I only have listened to less than a handful of audiobooks. I love podcasts, so I'm always
Yeah.
happy to listen to Questlove's podcasts with the guests that he has on there. But no, I heard that a couple of them, like I heard the Beastie Boys book was amazing on the audiobook, where it had different people reading different chapters and having the music behind it, something that's really really tough to do in the audiobook world where the royalties are sky high. So no, I haven't heard it, but yeah, I'm a big fan of the audiobook. There's nothing more than folk songs being passed down from generation to generation. It's just oral traditions and history, which is great.
He did it. Yeah, no, that's it. He did a really good job. He even like sort of, I liked that aspect too, that he really explained what went on during the time of history. Like he really did a good job.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Long may he run and write and read and play.
Yep, that's just basically it, isn't it? And so like when it comes to when it comes to music itself, what are some of your favorite songs from the last several decades? Like, I mean, now I have to say, now I sent you my playlist just for I did that for fun, just to have a look at, just for you to have a look at what kind of music I like and all that good stuff. Um, so what about like what are some of like your favorite songs? Like, are there any from from my list that you like if you had a chance to look at?
Yeah, I, I'm I never understood guilty pleasure. I never understood the hate for artists or certain songs. I never understood it. It kind of drives me a little bit up the wall where it's like, man, nobody's asking for your opinion. Nobody cares. Um, but for me, it's, there's always a little, study after study has shown that the music that you grew up as a teenager listening to is usually the one that holds really true and fast to your life. And that's certainly the same for me, where, I still listen to Tears for Fears and Talk Talk and Sinead O'Connor and Genesis and Phil Collins stuff in excess. But I listen to new music all day long, where a number of radio stations, including KEXP out of Seattle, is always on my is always playing in the office. So that's where I got to know artists like Marie Davidson and Sam Fender, and hearing the new Cure album and hearing the new Depeche Mode record and Wet Leg and so many other bands that, after, I kind of check out a song, it's like, oh, let's see what else that they have going on, and then spark up Spotify and go add them to the playlist that I listen to over on the weekend. So it's a lot of older stuff. Certainly, I'm obsessed with the Beatles, like most people. Love the Who, love Zeppelin, Janis Joplin. Um, but for a lot of it is the 80s is kind of like my sweet spot, because I've heard that music so many times and still love it.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you mentioned Tears for Fears. I like a couple of my favorites by them are Shout and Everybody Wants to Rule the World.
Yeah. Those songs, that whole album, Songs from the Big Chair, is a record where if you have amazing speakers, that is the album to listen to, along with, obviously Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, or Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits, or Music for the Masses by Depeche Mode, or any Cure record. But Songs for the Big Chair, and I've told them this, it's one of those albums where I can't believe that that human beings created it. And it's not so much of its brilliance, because it is brilliant, but the sound on the record, if you realize that all of the artists start with a blank canvas and a blank tape when they go in the studio and create something, and then stop and say, yep, we did it. We're happy with it. Who knows if anybody's going to buy it? Who knows if anybody's going to play it? But those songs on the record, especially with Everybody Wants to Rule the World, is completely different than any other song that people have ever heard. With the intro, and then another intro, and then the verse, and then another verse, and then a kind of chorus, and then back to another verse, then a solo, then another solo, then back to the previous kind of pre-chorus, then a little bit of the chorus, and then a very long outro. For that to make it on the radio is why I love music. It's just that whole
Yeah.
discovery part of it, of this song should not have been on the radio. I mean, it's catchy as hell, but on a structural level, it's out of nowhere. It's brilliant. I love them dearly.
What did you think of the song? Now you mentioned that you just mention songs, the long intro, and some interesting lyrics and things like that. What do you think of James Blunt as "You're Beautiful"? That's especially the radio version. That was interesting.
Yeah, it's also interesting because I think I've been to a half a dozen weddings where they play that song, and it's not necessarily a love song by any means. It's kind of, it is, but it's not. I mean, look, James Blunt can do no wrong. He absolutely knows his way around a song and song structure. He's got an amazing voice, and he is probably easily top 5 follows on social media, especially on Twitter, where he will answer people back who are insulting him, to be like, people who rag on "You're Beautiful" and that they're sick of hearing his voice. James Blunt will write back and say, imagine being me. Like, I'm sick of me. Like, he just has a wicked sense of humor. And he definitely knows how to make fun of himself. And I think that's for sanity's sake. You need that light touch when not only you're dealing with people on social media, if you happen to read comments, but staying sane in the music industry where 40 million people could buy your record, and there's still 320 million people in America who don't know who you are, or 6 billion around the world that have never heard of a Taylor Swift song. Like it's a real it keeps you on the level for sure.
I liked some of Taylor Swift's older stuff. Like, do you remember like songs like Love Story and
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And now you're gonna have like 10,000 like Swifties on you. So you can send all correspondent in care of Ali and not me. No, she definitely look, she's an immense talent. I mean,
oh
she's
yeah,
a
yeah.
singer, songwriter, dancer. Her shows are amazing. And if people don't like it, it's like, okay, cool. You might not be in her demo. You might not be a 15-year-old teenage girl who is going through their first breakup, and that's okay. There's lots of stuff out there.
Oh sure. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Like but I mean that was it. Like she wanted to change course, and I think that sort of said and I felt it sort of said, well, okay, it's time to change course and now it's time to change things up a little bit.
Yeah, and look at what happened. Artists who grew up watching Hee Haw in the 1970s stuck with the sound and the traditionalists of country music, where you're still telling a story, you still have banjos, you still have acoustic guitars, you still have that Nashville sound that they love. But people who grew up loving country music in past 1990 also grew up listening to AC/DC and Bryan Adams and Aerosmith and the Beatles. And not that those artists who kind of stuck with it in country music didn't, but if you go to country music festivals like Boots and Hearts or Lasso Montreal, the audience out there loves hip hop. They love Beyonce. That's why they accepted Beyonce with open arms, even though that her songs aren't necessarily story songs, and it's probably more of an R&B record than a country record. But the ability for that new generation of country music artists to have R&B in their music, to have rappers in their songs, to have pop music, she kind of led the absolute superstardom and superstars to go into country, lending a hand for people like Chappell Roan to go into pop and then then have a country music song. And nobody should be surprised anymore, because those kind of artists that are winning the Junos, they're winning the Grammys now, didn't grow up with only one set of rules and one set of musical styles in their house. Their parents, like me, listened to so many different styles. So that's going to be reflected in that kid's music. And if they become a musician, that's going to be seeped in their DNA too.
Yeah, I find the whole thing very interesting. Bryan Adams, he's got some good stuff as well. Heaven, Back to You.
Yeah, I mean that whole Reckless album is it's amazing. It's in the early 1980s where he was breaking it with Reckless, and Corey Hart with Boy in the Box album, and Tom Cochrane.
Never Surrender.
Yeah, and Tom Cochrane was selling 1 million albums in this country, and you had the Spoons and Honeymoon Suite and 5440 and Platinum Blonde and Big Sugar and Molly Johnson and Infidels. I mean, that was, for a 14-year-old kid like me watching Much Music, that was like, these people, like Blue Rodeo lives like down the street from me, like Pursuit of Happiness are making videos on Queen Street for $300. That's amazing. That showed a lot of Canadians that they could do it.
Yeah, Blue Rodeos, Blue Rodeos Try, that was one of their popular ones.
Pretty amazing. And now they just got a stamp on from Canada Post.
Wow. It's just amazing how that sort of kind of gets into that sort of piece, because even when it comes to Canadian artists like Nelly Furtado, Jen Arden, Sarah McLachlan.
Yeah. Yeah, all of them. Shania Twain, Celine Dion. I mean, in the early 1990s, women were dominating not just the Canadian music charts, but dominating the world charts and selling tens of millions of albums around the world, putting the spotlight on not only on Canada but other Canadian artists as well, and also through those sales allowed the major labels and Canadian music industry not only to keep surviving but thriving, putting money into their bank accounts and allowing to sign other artists in the 1990s and 2000s that might not otherwise get a chance to get heard, but because they were, being licensed and being distributed from their Canadian record label in some cases, that was money that got imported back into the Canadian music infrastructure, allowing Factor and the Canada Council and the Ontario Arts Council grants to give money out to the next wave of superstars.
Yeah, no, that's it. It's very interesting how this sort of kind of comes about. It's like, and then Sarah McLachlan, and I would imagine, what those would, and I would, and there'd be good interviews too. Sarah McLachlan, Jen Arden.
Oh yeah, I mean they're people. They're all 4-dimensional. They have things to say. Yeah.
Yeah, no, interesting. Yeah, no, that'd be I'm gonna read off some. I'm gonna some listeners' favorites as well here. Starting with, I'm gonna give you shout outs here. Makara sent in some of her favorites. Somebody to Love by Queen. I Will Wait by Mumford, and Sons 1111 by Ben Barnes, and I Say a Little Prayer by Dionne Warwick. Now, I'm not familiar with that particular one. Tell me what you think of those ones.
Yeah, that's pretty great. Can't go wrong with Queen. Still selling a couple 100,000 copies every single year of their greatest hits. Dionne Warwick is amazing. Another must follow, when she was on Twitter. That whole Burt Bacharach sound and them working together was legendary, amazing. I mean, Burt Bacharach is a genius songwriter in his own right, and then when they found Dionne Warwick, it was just a match made in heaven. So great choices. Love that Mumford and Sons track too.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one either. So yeah, it's interesting because like it's like, I think what I've always said is when it comes to kind of these interesting sort of like songs where it sort of comes to down to where you never like the history of them and where they sort of came to it's kind of like a piece. Now when I think of Dionne, now that one that I Say a Little Prayer, that's one I don't know if I've heard that one, but when I think of Dionne Warwick, I think of Heartbreaker.
Oh yeah. When I think of Dionne Warwick, the first thing that comes into my mind is her hosting Solid Gold in the 1970s.
Yeah. I mean, was it more like was Heartbreaker more popular than I Say a Little Prayer?
No, I think Save a Little Prayer is one of those songs that are going to be heard 100 years from now.
Unless it's a different, is it a different one than the Celine Dion and Andrea Bocelli duet there?
Of I Say a Little Prayer or Heartbreaker?
Yeah. I Say a Little Prayer.
No, that song's been covered like 800 times, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, you got to have a lot of guts if you're going to create a song called I Say a Little Prayer and not cover that song. That's just cheating because half the work is already done for you with the genius of the title.
Yeah. And Scott sends a couple in as well. It sounds like he likes more of the newer music. There's only one in the middle here that I'm familiar with, but we've got Leave It Up to Me by Aaron Carter. This next one I am familiar with, Bye 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 by NSYNC. And there's one I don't know at all here. It's I think it's a French title, Hoot La May by Ottawan. Not familiar with that one.
Don't know that one. I hope you didn't just swear to your audience as a joke.
I hope not either, but that's okay. So what do you think of the other ones there?
Yeah, I mean, look, in the 1990s, when you had NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears just storming up the charts and selling 20, 25 million albums, that brought a whole new generation of pop music lovers to the mainstream. People who didn't quite know what to listen to during the hair metal era of MTV, when all the W bands like Warrant and Whitesnake and bands like Guns N' Roses and Skid Row was selling a lot of copies as well. Then all of a sudden, pop music was back and swung the other way. And that led to, a little bit of a backlash of people who didn't want to listen to that and kind of digging around and searching for other artists, and found Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and Tad. But that just shows you that like there is something for everybody. But all that music of NSYNC and Britney and Backstreet Boys, it's it's like 35 years old, which is astonishing to me. But those songs are going to be played forever too. That's the music that a huge amount of people grew up to and will never leave. That was the pop music.
Yeah, because it's interesting on where these kinds of like where the songs kind of go to now. Even the Aaron Carter one, I'm not familiar with that one either.
Yeah, Aaron Carter's got a bunch of stuff that's going on as well. Before he unfortunately passed away. But yeah, he definitely learned from his brother and the people that were working around him.
Yes, yeah, and one more list here. Sienna sent some in, and she categorizes these by decades on some of her favorites from these different decades. Go ahead.
Putting in the work.
Yes. Okay. So we've got from the 1950s, The Tokens, The Lion Sleeps Tonight.
Right? Yeah.
And from the 1960s, we have Donovan, Mellow Yellow.
Mm-hmm.
And we have from the 1970s, the Bee Gees, Stayin' Alive.
Oh, that whole album. Oh my gosh. That whole run of Saturday Night Fever and Spirits Haven't Flown by the Bee Gees. No bad word can be said about the Bee Gees around me.
No, exactly. And from the 1980s, we've got Wham, Wake Me Up Before You Go Go.
Yep, from Make It Big.
Yes. And we have from the 1990s, the Spice Girls and Wannabe.
Pretty great.
Yeah, and from the 2000s, yes, from the 2000s, we have Outkast's Hey Ya.
Yeah, look at that. All earworms. See? That's the amazing thing about women. And with the Spice Girls and girl power, and the fact that all these years later, any hint, any smidgen of news about a reunion stirs up millions of people worldwide in a good way. So yeah, good stuff. I like that one. Love Wham. Love George Michael. Can do no wrong too. Just one of the absolute most devastating deaths in my lifetime when it came to musicians. Followed them since the Wham Fantastic Days back in 1983. And then when they launched Make It Big, it's the reason why I pierced my ears in both ears, because it looks so cool that George Michael has it, and I still do. But I don't look as cool as him.
Yeah, when you mentioned Honeymoon Suite back there, when I think of Honeymoon Suite, I always think of I Believe in Father Christmas.
That's going to make him feel really good. That's going to make him feel really happy to know that, like, of all the songs, it's going to be a Christmas song that does it.
But you know what I find funny, though? You know what I really find it? Because when I listen to that one, right, and I listen to, are you familiar with Serena Ryder's All for Love?
No, but is that the song that she did with, that's the song, that's the Bryan Adams, Rod Stewart?
No, that was a solo one that she did.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Yeah, it's actually, it is in my playlist there.
Yeah, amazing. Love Serena.
So that starts out with the intro with the intro piece. It reminds me of I Believe in Father Christmas.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool.
Because it has a similar sort of intro to that. It has a similar.
Yeah. Well, there's only X amount of chords.
Yeah, because I think Honeymoon. What were some of his other Honeymoon Suite's other popular ones?
New Girl Now and Wave Babies and Feel It Again. Yeah, they got that whole Greatest Hits album is like classic rock goodness.
And because I always like it. It's fun and music as well. It's like I like that music has that. Music for me has always been like sports. I consider it like a bit of an escape from the day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, music is most people's favorite place to hide and hide away. But music can also kind of get you in the moment and teach you a lot about life. I mean, Bruce Springsteen said he learned more about life from the grooves of a 45 record than what he actually learned in school. So I kind of feel the same way that Bob Dylan told me and taught me about politics, and the Beatles told me about culture. The Sex Pistols taught me about what was going on in the UK, and just those songs really resonate, allowing you to kind of read up on what was going on and read NME and Melody Maker and Billboard and Rolling Stone and Spin Magazine and Q and Mojo and now Pitchfork. It's one of those things where it's really a gateway to everything.
They can reach you at thatericalper.com.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they can reach me through there or send me a note through DM, through Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. I'm always reading that stuff.
Thank you so much for listening and or watching Broadcast Map. To learn more about the show, please visit broadcastmap.ca. While you're there, subscribe to the newsletter so you never miss an update. Besides, it's free. Enter your email address and hit subscribe right on the homepage and at the bottom of all Broadcast Map posts.